Hello, Bl'Artagnan here with an Xtreme TCC challenge for Commodore of the Skies, the RNA Lost Chapter Lufenia Plus. We have a no burst, no synergy, no burst plus, no core, no Sid Rings team featuring Beatrix, Agrius, and Blue Edward. They called me a madman, and yet here we are. So we're starting off real quick with an immediate Italian call because this team has a pretty difficult time dealing with the orb, especially during this first phase. We have 0 range damage anywhere on the team, so we're relying entirely on critical hits to make sure we don't die. This means making sure the enemies take as few turns as possible during this phase of the fight, because otherwise the orb goes down and soon we go down with it. You'll see here the starting turn order was actually really important. We needed B to go second so that this could happen. We wanted Beatrix's counter to push B back so we could push A back and just keep the break order going right. Before we get too deep into this, be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. It really helps support the channel, helps it grow, you know the drill. Thanks in advance for anything you can toss my way. So, at this point we are, once again, relying on our AoE critical hits to keep the orb from killing us. And we can't let them go, so we're going to go ahead and Crystal Idol here with the Mid-Italian LD call. You'll notice I took the EX passives off, that'll be coming up later, in order to give us extra debuff real estate. Sure, the speed down would have been nice, but I think this works out a whole lot better. You can see here with 3 blue support, well, 3 blue encouragement armors here, we're able to hit some pretty reasonable full AoE damage on the enemy. That's the big core of how this team is basically working, is it's a bunch of battery and a bunch of full AoE HP attacks, taking great advantage of the change to Agrius' skill 2. Go, launching one of them. Like a bit of a goof here. I probably should have saved this launch for something. I should have hit B here and let Edward do the launching, but there we go. Turn rate, what do you know? I'm gonna go ahead and hide to refresh that buff. Gonna go ahead and lullaby. We're playing an interesting dance of a game here because right now we have the Jack debuff and we have the turn rate down from Italian on them. We don't want them taking too many turns and letting either of those fall off too soon. We want that turn rate down to stay on them because a lot of our damage is coming from these HP damage up debuffs. Kurasame, Faded Moly, that sort of thing. We don't want those falling off either. Luckily, with Kurasame, as I've said before, it doesn't reset to 1 stack if they're paralyzed and don't act on their turn, so we can at least let them act, or let them have turns here and there. We just want to keep those other debuffs from counting down too far before we're ready to let them go. You can see here, doing pretty decent damage with our battery and full AoE HP damage. God bless that skill 2 rework. Jack coming in here and contributing? That was kind of pointless. But yeah, the brave damage on this team is not great. It actually has, I want to say like 60% brave damage up between the 3 of them, but at the end of the day, these guys have insane defense, so we're not really relying on brave damage to deal with them. We're relying very heavily on battery. And as I said, that Kurasame debuff goes a long way to making our HP damage deal a lot more. I was pleasantly surprised with how this team worked, though. I really wanted to use these 3 together because I thought they bring a lot of things I enjoy. They bring some auras, they bring a lot of battery, they bring a lot of safety, they bring a lot of panic buttons, a lot of variety of ways to kind of stop the bosses from attacking us. And in practice, it ended up being a ton of fun to do. Obviously, this isn't going to be the same on every fight. There are going to be a lot more restrictive fights in the future that force more damage onto the team, what have you, specific orb checks, etc., but I'm having a good time. Look at that. It was nearly 300,000 damage on an Edward EX. And after their first wave of reductions have kicked in. Second wave? I don't know. You can see there the Jack debuff is at 2 now, and the turn rate down is at 1. We're going to go ahead and let it fall off now because we actually do need that debuff real estate that the turn rate was taken up. So we're going to bring in the Ace Friend now and have him drop his LD on them. That turn rate down was really handy for us to get this far, but it served its purpose, and now we need that slot for some more important stuff. Gonna go ahead and paralyze them one last time with Judgment Blade. so that Ace can go ahead and use his burst here. I'm still figuring out the nuances of how to use the Ace Friend. Shout out to Type Zoe, by the way, my co-host on the live stream, for suggesting Ace Friend alongside removing those EX passives. I was having some struggles getting a good friend unit to work with this team. Ended up being exactly what I needed there. Deciding whether I want them to take that turn or not, and I decided, you know what, let's let them take the turn. The Jack debuff is falling off now, and Kurasami is going down to 1 stack, or to 1 turn, which is kind of lame, but what are you going to do, right? Alright, so they're now below 50% health, more or less, so we can just start going as hard as we can on them, really. Once again, this team doesn't have a great way to deal with the orb, so if they take too many turns, we're going to be in trouble from that orb. So we want to go ahead and take it up with the summon pretty soon. Using some calls and AAs to get some additional blind studs procs. If I was smarter, I would have used the AA before I used the call there, so I could use the other AA without taking down the enchant time. I want to keep that enchant up for the next few turns to ensure that we're dealing excellent damage. Although, in hindsight, I just realized Ramuh enchants Thunder and Beatrix imperils Thunder, so that, I guess, wasn't necessary. Oh well. Sadly, Ace is messing up the break order, but this is a small price to pay for the absurd damage he's putting out during this phase of the fight. If you compare it to like a Cloud of Darkness friend or something, basically every action is like 1 to 2 characters taking an additional action from the trap damage alone. It's pretty nuts. Look at that. That's about as much damage just from a trap going off as this team is doing on a regular turn. Ooh, Ace Friend is bonkers. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and Great Spiral combo so we can do as much damage as we can for the rest of this fight. Last AA here, getting those last few blind stud procs off. We want them to go off as much as possible while Ace is on the field, because as much as I love Edward, his auras are no match for a burst effect. You'll also notice that once one of the traps is gone and it's just down to the 1 trap, as you'll see in a second, the damage is actually going to fall off a bit, because that extra defense down from those traps is no joke. It adds up. Okay, Ace is out, Edward is back, and we have got 15, rounded out 13.5% to go between the two of them. I have no idea if that's how math works, but I think at this point we're too deep in the fight for math to be the difference maker. From here on out, we just don't want them taking actions, because once again we don't want that Kurasami debuff to count down. So we're going to go ahead and silence them so they don't attack us. We could technically eat an attack with Holy Knight Safeguard if we wanted to, but I don't want them putting up their phalanx and getting, jacking up the reductions on the fight. We're relying very heavily on our battery to deal damage at this point. Although Blind Stud is apparently still ticking and doing a little bit. More than I thought, more than once, which is good. But basically this last 10% of the fight is going to come down to battery and Beatrix's defense ignore. We're just going to have to do as much as we can with that. Drop in shock, because I think it does a bit more damage there. Solid stuff. It's 500,000 damage this late in the fight. Beatrix continuing to be a beast. I'm gonna drop a lullaby here. Knowing that he just unbroke there, this is gonna screw up the break order some more, but what are you gonna do? I had to do that so that Agrius could have time to recharge Fated Molly, and the struggle is real. Break order stuff. Okay, we have 5% to go. We are almost there. The orb is not a problem at this point. We've been consistently critting them, thanks to Beatrix's defense ignore, piercing and breaking them when we need it to. And so it's really just going to come down to keeping them from hitting us. I'm trying to figure out here if I'd be able to stall out for Lullaby, but I don't think I will. Beatrix, is going to hit them both no matter what, so might as well get that Fated Molly now just to ensure that they're not going to mess with us. Actually kind of lucky here. When Lullaby goes off, if it's on multiple enemies, it always goes in the order A, B, C. So if A is going second, it actually delays them, where instead of just making them do a little do-si-do in the turn order. don't know if that makes sense, but if you're watching to this, this late in the fight, hopefully that is a handy tip. Anyway, there we go. The Xtreme TCC challenge cleared. No bursts, none of that good stuff. With some of my favorite characters, this was quite a fun ride. Oh, yeah, thanks to Drew Sane for that ace. Very good stuff. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.